Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of what I'm calling fan requested videos. These are videos that you guys have asked me to make or have some way inspired me to make, either through conversations on Facebook or on the channel comment page or on Twitter. Somewhere a fan has said something like, hey, can you make a video on this? Or we've started a discussion. I've went, ooh, maybe I should talk about that. I'm going to try, I'm basically going to get this out of the way right at the beginning of the video this time. I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours. If you've been watching the channel thus far, you know why. But in order to do that, I need everybody's help. Please share this, Facebook groups, on Reddit, anywhere you possibly can to get as many eyes on this as possible. If you are watching this, and this is the first video you've ever watched of mine, hi there. Please hit the subscribe button. Even if you never watch anything else on this channel again, hit the subscribe button. Because again, this is a numbers game right now. Who knows? You may find that there's, I have a lot of content on this channel. I have over 700 videos on here. You may find that there's quite a few things on this channel that you really enjoy. Or you may find that you really enjoy heckling me in the comments, or, whatever it is that, gives you joy. Yeah, just stick around, have fun, watch some stuff. I'm working really, really hard to hit those goals so I can continue making content here on YouTube and continue to grow and thrive here. So that out of the way. The last couple of videos I've done have been kind of explanations of what 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons is, and some of the differences you might notice from previous editions to when you're transitioning into 5th edition. And I've got at least one other. I might do 2 other videos along that line. But today I wanted to do something just a little bit, for me, just a little bit fun and cathartic. Because first things first, I am very much under the weather right now. So I'm not feeling too well. I'm not able to think too clearly. So what I wanted to do, one of the people that I'm actually going to look up, I'm going to look up the comment. Sapphire Dragon 357 commented on my last video. He wanted me to do a benefits of multiclassing video because he did, he or she, I'm actually not sure, so whatever your chosen pronoun is, Sapphire Dragon. They wanted to know, what are the benefits of multiclassing? Because I mentioned in my 3rd edition versus 5th edition video that multiclassing in 3rd edition was necessary. You had to do it because eventually you would get to a point where leveling up just got you some extra hit points, and that was it. And you weren't getting any new abilities or anything like that, and it would really stifle your character. And in 5th edition, you can go all the way to level 20 in a single class, and the really high level abilities, like your 18th and 20th level abilities, are massive. They do massive changes to the character, and they can be very, very powerful. Sapphire Dragon 357 asked, what are the benefits of multiclassing? Why would anyone multiclass in 5th edition D&D when these high-level abilities are so powerful? And it's a complicated answer. First things first, there's always story reasons. There's always story reasons to multiclass where they'll be like, oh, well, like I had a campaign I ran that you can watch here on the channel. It's called The Tyranny of Dragons. And we actually had a wizard that multiclassed into druid. Not because of a mechanical benefit or anything like that, but because I think either he was or one or some of the other party members were actually resurrected because they had died fighting a roper, and they needed a resurrection. So I wrote a little bit into the story to allow them to resurrect the characters without having anywhere near enough money to buy a resurrection spell. And in order to do that, one of them had to pledge to serve the Emerald Enclave. And so because of that, he felt that his character would start getting more in touch with nature and start following Eldath, who's the Faerunian god of nature, or goddess. I'm actually not sure. So there's always story reasons for multiclassing. That campaign actually had a lot of multiclassing. I had a rogue monk in there. I had a wizard druid in there. I think that was it. I have a class that I created myself. I published on the DM's Guild called the Dragon Knight. In one of the campaigns I run, I have a rogue Dragon Knight multi-class, which has been really interesting to see how certain skills synergize and things like that. Yeah, there are always story reasons to do it, but there can be some pretty nice mechanical benefits. The general rule of thumb when multiclassing in 5th edition is, first of all, it generally, if you want to get the most out of it, this is something that you generally need to plan really well. Because with things like you get a feat every 4 levels in most classes, if you only take 3 levels in a class, you are actually missing out on an ability score or a feat. So if you take odd levels in classes in general, you can miss out on ability score improvements or feats that can really affect your character's ability to kind of stay toe-to-toe with other characters. So it is something that you want to plan, because when you take those levels in other classes, can affect some pretty major things. In general, what we call dipping into another class is preferable than full-on multiclassing. Mostly because full-on multiclassing, like you would do in 3rd edition, where you'd be like a fighter 7, wizard 10 or something like that. So you could, fight and then also cast spells and all that. In general, you can do that with subclasses in 5th edition. You don't really need to multiclass in order to be like a sword-wielding wizard. They already have that. And they actually have quite a few different versions of it, depending on whether you want to be kind of more of an emphasis of the, sword and, melee attacking with a little bit of magic sprinkled in, or you want to be mostly magical but just uses a sword every so often, or anything in between. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. In order to build, the custom character that you really want to, multiclassing really isn't needed for that. There's enough subclasses and enough feats that allow you to modify your character that you have a wide variety. Generally, what you'll do is you'll dip into another class, where you'll take like 1 or 2 levels into another class just to get a specific ability that synergizes well with the way that you play your character. Now, I've mentioned before in my monk video, one of the things that I saw a lot in Adventure League play, which is the organized play campaign done by Wizards of the Coast. And one of the things I saw often with Shadow Monks is they would take 2 levels of Warlock. They would stay monks, but they would just relatively early on, generally, they would take like 4 levels of Monk. They'd take 2 levels of Warlock, and then would continue on in Monk. And the reason that they would go 4 levels in Monk is because you got the ability score improvement at level 4. So they could either get a feat or improve either their Dex or Wiz, which is the things that they want. And then they would take 2 levels in Warlock to get that improved Dark Vision, where they could see in magical darkness, and they would use that to cloak themselves in a shadow. Yes, that's a relatively common thing, is you just dip into another class. You don't go full on, because the things that they're losing at 18th and 19th level, or at 20th or 19th and 20th level, at 20th level, the monk ability is you get, if you start combat with 0 key, you get 4 key points. So as 20th level abilities go, it's not like uber powerful. It can be. Again, I mentioned this in the monk video. When you think about all the other synergies that you can do with other abilities by just having extra key points at the beginning of combat if you blew through all of them in the last one. It's a big deal. And the 19th level one, I don't remember off the top of my head what they're losing at 19th level. I don't remember it being, incredibly game changing for a 19th level ability. Generally, 19th level abilities aren't, this amazing, wonderful thing. There's a monk. What did you get? Oh, it was an ability score improvement. So yeah, they would lose out. You would lose out on one ability score improvement, which can be a big deal because that can be either a feat or it can be, an extra. That can bring up your dexterity to 20, or that can bring up your wisdom to 20, and really make a big difference. But the benefit of getting that improved dark vision, especially in lower level campaigns and lower level adventures, really kind of outweighs the end, the end of life stuff. Because the fact of the matter is, most campaigns don't make it beyond tier 2, maybe tier 3. So that's the tiers in 5th edition. Tier 1 are between levels 1 and 4. Tier 2 is between levels 5 to 10. Tier 3 is between levels 11 to 16. And Tier 4 is 17 to 20. Most campaigns fizzle out in Tier 2 or Tier 3. That's just how it is. People get busy. My custom campaign that I'm running right now, I run it every other week, and I have for almost 2.5 years now. They're at level 10 right now, and they've been playing for 2.5 years. So we use a milestone leveling system, so it's theoretically possible that they might have been a higher level now, or if I was running the campaign every week, they would probably be a higher level now. But 2.5 years of playing the same characters, you get to level 10. People's lives change over years. So long-term campaigns like that. So the immediate benefit of multiclassing and dipping into another class early on, for a lot of people, will outweigh the fact that they're losing something when their character reaches epic tier, because chances are they're never going to get to that tier. So that's one of the reasons why you might multi-class is, again, you get short-term immediate benefits, and you give up some long-term benefits that you may never get. You may never get your character that high or high enough to actually get those benefits. So, again, everything in 5th edition is about choice. Everything about 5th edition is, if you're going to do something, you're going to have to give up something else in order to do it. And it's one of the reasons I like it, because it means that the player themselves really has to focus on, what do I want to do in this situation? What does my character want to do in this situation? What is the best choice? Not so much, okay, I have to do this or else I'm not going to be able to continue playing this character because I'll be underpowered. That was a problem with some, definitely in 3rd edition, you could make worthless characters. It was really, really easy to make characters that were completely unplayable by the time they got to about level 7 to 10. And Pathfinder's the same way. It's actually not difficult at all to make a completely pointless character that's not worth anything if you don't invest your skills correctly, if you don't have the right ability scores, if you don't take levels the right way or use the right weapon. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can build useless characters. And 5th edition, there isn't a ton. If you take like a bunch of levels, like, 1 or 2 levels in like 5 or 6 different classes, then yeah, you're going to be a kind of useless character because you never get any of the good stuff. You're always just dipping. But for the most part, it's hard to make a completely useless character. So anyway, adding on top of that warlock, that dipping warlock for Shadow Monks, there's a new warlock pact you can get. Warlocks get to choose their pact at first level. And in the player's handbook, you had Pact of the Archfey, Fiend, or Great Old One. And all of them were kind of interesting and did other things. In Xanathar's Guide to Everything, the newest source book, or newest supplement for 5th edition, they added a new Warlock Pact, which was Pact of the Hexblade. And it's a really cool kind of sword wielding magic user. that's very different from the Eldritch Knight, that's very different from the Blade Singer, it's very different from the Bard. And one of the things that kind of defines it is they have this ability at first level called Hexblade's Curse. What they can do, they can only use it once per, I think it's long rest. They can choose a target as a bonus action and curse them for a minute. What the curse does is it gives them advantage on attack rolls. It lets them add their proficiency bonus to damage. If that creature dies, they can get they can regain some hit points off of it. So for a monk, if you're dipping into Warlock, it actually wouldn't be a bad idea to go with the Hexblade Warlock for 2 levels to get your Devil Sight, which is the invocation that lets you see in magical darkness, and then one other useful useful invocation, because you get 2 at level 2. And then just go completely with Monk for the rest, because you would have this curse that when you need to do damage, you could activate the curse, do a fairly high amount of damage because you're always getting advantage and you're always doing extra damage to them. You can stun them, you can do all these other really cool things, and then again with the Devil Sight, you can be invisible while doing it. So that would be kind of a really good synergy with just how the monk works in general. One of the other things that you can do, and I actually have to look to see, because I don't think Rangers get this one. I have to look really, really quickly. Rangers. Yes, that was my Zordon impression. Don't laugh at me. You can. Okay. So another thing that you can do as a monk, if you want to be, again, if you want to focus a little bit more on the damaging aspects of being a monk, you can multiclass into Ranger. And take 2 levels of Ranger, because at level 2, Rangers get access to spells. And one of the spells they get access to is Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark is an incredibly useful spell. What it does is you mark a target. Every time you hit the target, which I believe requires... it may require a melee weapon attack, which if it does... This doesn't count. Let me look at Hunter's Mark again. Actually, you don't actually even need to do that, because you can do it with Hex. But I'm going to look anyways, because I have mentioned it, and I haven't actually seen it used, but it seems like something that would be useful. So Hex would probably be the easier one, with a weapon attack. Yeah, okay. So Hex would be the easier one. Hex is a first-level spell for Warlocks, so again... it's something that you could do with by just dipping into the Warlock class by 2 things. You can technically do something similar with Hunters, but it's not as effective because it requires weapon attacks, and your unarmed strikes don't count as weapon attacks. But Hex, anytime you hit them with an attack, you do an extra d6 of damage. So with a monk... that gets 4 attacks per turn, hexing a target, and then also being invisible, you start doing a lot of damage, because you're doing, at that point you would be a level 4 monk with level 2 warlock, so you'd be doing, let's see, level 4, I think it's still a d4 on that, so you'd be doing 1d4 plus 1d6 plus your dex mod plus your proficiency bonus, if you have the Hexblade Curse on, and you would be invisible to them while you're attacking for 3 attacks per turn. And once you got to 5th level, that would turn into 1d6 for your martial arts, plus 1d6 for the Hex, plus your dex mod, plus your proficiency bonus for the damage if you're using the Hex, plus you're invisible, so you get advantage from a number of different sources, and they can't really hit you back. So as you can see, that can turn into a really, really broken character very, very quickly. As you start doing 4 attacks, that basically turns it into 8d6 plus, let's say you have a 16 a 16 dexterity at this point, which is not an unheard of thing. So if you have a 16 dexterity, if you hit with all 4 attacks and you have Hex on and you also have the Warlock's Curse on, at level 5, you would be doing 8d6 damage plus 6 times 4 plus 24. Because you get 3 damage from your dexterity modifier and 3 damage from your proficiency bonus while the Hexblade's Curse is on. So, and that only costs you one key point per turn. And if you don't use the key point, you just do straight up attacking, it's 66 plus 18 with Hexblade's Curse on every single turn for 10 turns. That's a lot of damage, especially for a level 6 or a level 7 character. Like that's a ton of damage. So that's kind of an example of how a lot of people will multiclass. You can get even more creative. One of my favorite builds I've ever seen, it's used by a friend of mine who's a DM. He DMs a ton. He used to be a local coordinator for the D&D Adventure League. He actually runs a gaming group around where he lives, and he takes his DMs from his gaming group, and they go to various conventions running D&D games. And for those of you that don't know, going to conventions is really expensive. It always has been, especially if the convention is far enough away that you can't drive to the convention every day. Getting hotel rooms is expensive. Paying for the convention itself is expensive. So one of the things that D&D players, specifically DMs, do to offset the cost of going to conventions is we will run games for the conventions. And most conventions will reward their DMs by giving them free badges or reimbursing them their badges. And if you run enough games for them, they'll give you free hotel rooms. It depends on the convention and how good you are at haggling as to how many games you're going to run. But generally, you should expect for like a 3 or 4 day convention, you should expect to be running a minimum of like 4 games, 4-hour D&D games over the weekend. If you want a free badge, somewhere between 3 and 4. And if you want a hotel room, you're probably going to be running somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 4-hour games over the lifespan of the convention. Which still means you've got a fair amount of time to do your own thing, and again, you're getting a free hotel room. You're going to be sharing it with 4 other people because they book them to the limits when they're giving them out for free. But you get a free hotel room, you get a free badge to go, do stuff at the convention. It's a really, really common practice. So if you want to go to more conventions, learn how to DM, contact the convention itself and go, hey, do you guys have a DM rewards program or something like that? And see what they tell you. Because most conventions do. It's how they get the people to run all of their events. And it means you get to play D&D and get reimbursed for it. So anyway, that's what he does with his DMs is they go around during convention season. They go to various conventions and they run tons and tons of games. So he has seen literally just about everything you could possibly think of as far as broken characters and people trying to game the system and stuff like that. And he has a character he calls the DM Killer. The reason he calls it this is the most annoying character for a DM ever. He will only play this character if the DM has somehow upset him, or it's one of his friends and he just wants to give him a hard time. This is how the character goes. And I may be misremembering a few aspects of it. But the character themselves is a Lightfoot halfling. The reason that's important is Lightfoot halflings have this ability where they, if they roll a 1, they have this thing called halfling luck. They can re-roll any one they roll on the dice. They have to accept the second roll no matter what it is. But that still means the likelihood of them getting a critical fail goes from a 1 in 20 chance, which is 5%, down to a 1 in 400 chance, which is I think 0.5% or no, 0.25%, I think. So yeah, it's yeah, pretty pretty interesting. So that's that. So it removes it lets him re-roll ones. Okay. Then he also took Divination Wizard. Divination wizards are something that a lot of people don't think about playing because divination spells are things like detect magic or clairvoyance. Like they're really not combat spells, and so a lot of people don't think about divination wizards. But one of the abilities that they get is at the beginning of the day, they get to roll 2d20 and then record whatever those rolls are. And then sometime during the day, they're allowed to replace those rolls. They're allowed to use those d20s to replace any roll of anybody at the table. So if they roll in the morning and they roll like a 16 and a 4, during the game, bad guy comes up, he gets a critical hit on one of them. The divination wizard goes, "No, you didn't. You rolled a 4." And the DM then just has to kind of, okay, I rolled a 4 and I missed with the attack. That really sucks. You just took away my crit. Or one of the players rolls really poorly and he goes, "No, you didn't. You rolled a 16." So that's, again, modifying rolls. He already has that. He took the lucky feats, which if you're not familiar with the lucky feat in 5th edition, what it is you get 3 luck points per day. You can burn a luck point to let you re-roll any d20 roll, or to force someone rolling against you to re-roll their d20 roll. So if somebody rolls a crit against you, you can use lucky to re-roll that roll, force them to re-roll that roll. Or if you miss or fail a saving throw or something, you can use lucky to re-roll it. You can do that 3 times a day. So now we have Lightfoot Halfling, which gets to re-roll all their ones. You have Divination Wizard, which lets them just replace 2 rolls with rolls that they already know, which gives them a lot of control over how things are going to result. And then you have the luck feat, which lets them just re-roll 3 dice throughout the day. Then you can multi-class into a wild mage sorcerer. One of the things that a wild mage sorcerer can do is called Tides of Chaos. Once per day, they can influence luck basically to give themselves advantage on a roll, which again just means that you roll 2 dice and you take the higher of the 2 dice. And then for the rest of the day they can't use it until they take a long rest, unless they cast a sorcerer spell of 1st level or higher, and then the DM can make them roll on the wild magic table. Which is this really weird table that weird things happen, like anything from your skin turning blue to you casting fireball on yourself. It's really weird. But if they do that, then they regain their Tides of Chaos ability and they can use it again. So when you go Divination Wizard plus Wild Magic Sorcerer plus Lightfoot Halfling plus the Lucky Feat, you have a character that can either give advantage or re-roll or force other rolls or replace rolls like 7 or 8 times a day without slowing down one bit. And it's a really, really interesting thing. He's a tier 2 character, so he's never had to go too high. But depending on which way he goes with sorcerer points and everything and the wild magic skills in general, like if you keep going like that, it gets crazy. So that's another example of just kind of a weird thing that you can do, and it doesn't really hurt because most of these multi-classing, like you get wild magic, you get Tides of Chaos at 1st level. You get that divination ability at, I think, 2nd or 3rd level. So by the time your overall character level is 4th level, you have this kind of weird character, and then take one more level to get your lucky feat. yeah, you're technically a fifth level character, and you can force rerolls or control rolls like 7 or 8 times a day. Again, it annoys the hell out of DMs because whenever they do something good or whenever something good happens to them, this guy can just ruin their day. Um, so yes, it is. It's an interesting kind of combination. And again, basic rule of multiclassing in fifth edition is you just dip into one, maybe two classes, and then kind of specialize in one main class to benefit you. Another relatively common thing to see, though not nearly as common as I think it should be, is you will see druids take a level anywhere between 1 to 3 levels of barbarian. And the reason behind this is for moon druids who get the ability to do combat beast shapes so they can fight as bears and eventually like Tyrannosaurus Rexes and stuff like that. What happens is the Barbarian Rage feature gives you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, and gives you extra damage to, I think it's weapon attacks, which doesn't technically count for beasts, but it's a lot of it is up to your DM. But it gives you this resistance and extra damage in general for our strength-based attacks, I believe it is. And then for a set number of time, if you make it to level 3 and you choose the totem barbarian, if you take the bear totem at level 3, you get resistance to all damage but psychic. So what can happen is you enter a rage before you transform, and then you have resistance basically to all damage while you are in your beast form, doing extra damage, doing all this stuff, and being just about impossible to kill. And then if they are able to knock you down out of your beast form, you just transform again because you've got 2 transformations a day. And so you turn the druid into a tank that can go toe to toe with just about anything, because as they get higher levels, they get to use some pretty powerful creatures that are just huge hit point sponges. And when you add resistance on top of the hit point sponge, it turns into a really, really powerful character. Even if you don't get the extra damage from rage, you turn into a really, really powerful character. And again, it's just a couple levels dip into another class. For just the rage feature, it is a 1 level dip. You just take 1 level of barbarian, you get rage right at level 1, and you're set. If you want the resistance to everything, you have to take 3 levels in it, which more likely than not you would start as a druid, get into wild shape, which you get at level 2. For level 3, probably get your rage feature. So by the time you're level 3, you're already being able to do some pretty cool stuff, and then just continue on in druid for a while, and then at higher levels, you might want to bounce a couple more things as you're getting into more and more battles that have magic users and stuff like that. Then you might go back and take a couple more levels in Barbarian. So again, that makes a really, really powerful character, very, very difficult to kill. Druids already can be very difficult to kill because of their wild shape, Moon Druids specifically, because of their wild shape and their ability to heal themselves and things like that. And if you add resistance onto it, they are beasts. No pun intended. They're absolute beasts. The next one, this is actually a character that a friend of mine has played, and I've actually been at the table with him. And he killed a wyvern. I think it was a tier 2 adventure. I think he was level 8 or 10. I can't remember. But he killed a wyvern, which is a pretty decent level monster. He killed a wyvern on the surprise round, without anyone else being aware. Because we cast silence on it, we were able to we ambushed this party of really, really bad guys. They had a necromancer with them who had a dragon, the wyvern. she had this dragon mount that she would use, and it would breathe fire and all this stuff. Like, it was a bad battle, and we just planned and we ambushed them. I cast silence so that no one would wake up because I was playing my Shadow Monk, and he just went to town. So the way he built this character was, if I remember correctly, it eventually turned into, I'm not sure if it was this way right then, but it was a level 5 fighter with 3 levels of rogue and I want to say 2 levels of ranger. And what it was is it was an archer build. So fighters get access to fighting styles, and so do rangers. And so for both of them, they can take the archery fighting style, which adds +2 to any damage you make with ranged weapons. You can only take that once, even if you get access to it twice. So he would take archery fighting style and then defensive fighting style for the ranger. The rogue, he would take the assassination subclass, and at that point he'd be getting an extra 2d6 for sneak attack damage, and would be able to use a bonus action to hide. At 5th level, he had 2 attacks as a fighter, which I believe he went the champion path, which meant that he crit on a 19 or a 20. So instead of having a 5% crit chance, he had a 10% crit chance. And so what he would do is he would hide, he would fire with advantage or find a way so that he could get his sneak attack. And if he crits, he could do extra, he would double all of his damage. So he would double the dice from his bow, he would double the dice from his sneak attack, and then he'd also cast Hunter's Mark on them. So at that point, he had 1d8 damage from the bow itself, 2d6 from the sneak attack, and 1d6 from the Hunter's Mark. If he crit on that, that turned into 2d8 plus 6d6 plus his dexterity modifier plus 2 for a single attack. And he had 2 attacks per round at that point. He was a beast. And then he could use a bonus action to hide, so that he was constantly moving around the battlefield, hiding behind, getting advantage on his shot, and then doing this sneak attack with extended criticals and stuff like that, and was really, really powerful. And so as he moved up, I think he focused on kind of splitting it between fighter for extra attacks and then rogue just for higher sneak attack stuff, and the assassin subclass giving him more cool stuff. But as you get higher and higher as a champion, you crit on lower and lower numbers. You can eventually get it to, you can crit all the way down on a 17 at level like 19 or 20, somewhere around there. He would never get to that level because he spread it out so much. But that's 3 different classes, and that's a little bit more of a dip, more than a dip. That's, really, really doing it. But again, he found things that all synergize together. The expanded criticals really helps with rogues and sneak attack, and anything that adds dice to it. So the other thing that he could have done is if he took one more level in, one more level in Ranger, he could have taken the Hunter path, and then they get this thing where if the creature is at less than max health, you do an additional, I think it's a d8 of damage to the creature once per turn. So combine that with Hunter's Mark and Sneak Attack and expanded criticals, and you would have these turns where he would do 50 to 100 damage per turn and was still just a tier 2 character. So again, that's another example of you have to plan it and you have to understand how the abilities synergize between the classes and what things are going to work and not. And again, understanding the difference between Hex and Hunter's Mark. Hex, any attack you make against them gets the extra damage, where Hunter's Mark, it has to be a weapon attack. So Hunter's Mark won't work with a monk's unarmed strikes because they don't count as weapon attacks. They count as unarmed strikes. You really do have to look at kind of the minutia of everything that's going on. But with that, it's pretty cool. The other thing that I've seen that doesn't technically require multiclassing, but it works. I think it works a little bit better if you do. Is you multiclass a Blade Singer, which is a wizard subclass in the Sorkos Adventures Guide, with a rogue. You only dip into the Blade Singer enough to get Blade Song, and the Blade Singer subclass, which I believe is level 2 for wizards, is when you get to choose your thing. And so what that does is it gives you some bonuses to your AC equal to your intelligence modifier, which, because rogues don't technically, like, rogues are almost entirely dexterity based. So rogues don't actually have a secondary stat that they need really high, and one of the subclasses of rogues you can have is an arcane trickster, which requires a high intelligence. So having a rogue with high intelligence is actually not all that uncommon, especially since you use intelligence to find traps. So you have a decent intelligence score and a decent dexterity score. You go Blade Singer, so you get access to a few spells like Shield and stuff like that, but the spell that you really want is a cantrip called Green Flame Blade, or Booming Blade. It depends on which way you want. What they are is cantrips in 5th edition get more powerful as your overall character level increases. So it doesn't matter if you're a wizard, if you're only a level 2 wizard, but you have 8 levels in something else, you count as a level 10 character. So what it is at 5th level, 11th level, and 17th level, you get extra damage for it. So Green Flame Blade, normally just you make a weapon attack as your action, and then you do your intelligence modifier damage to somebody nearby. With Booming Blade, it's similar, but what happens is you make the attack, and then if that character moves, they take your intelligence modifier damage. When you get to 5th level, with Green Flame Blade, you actually do your weapon damage plus 1d8 of fire damage, and then somebody next to them takes a d8 plus your intelligence modifier damage. And then at 11th level, it gets even higher. It goes 2d8, and then at 17th level, it goes 3d8. So what happens is, when you combine that with sneak attack and critical hits, what happens in 5th edition with a critical hit is you double the number of dice that you roll. Any static modifier doesn't double, but any dice you roll does. So if you just take 2 levels into Wizard so that you can get this spell and get Blade Song, which increases your AC and a bunch of other really cool, useful things, and then use that in conjunction with the Rogue's sneak attack, you can do on a critical hit for, like, let's say you're a level 7 character, so you're a 5 rogue, 2 wizard. Because you're level 7, you're going to be doing and you're using a rapier because it's a finesse weapon. That's what you need for that. So what it is you're going to do 1d8 regular damage. You're going to do 1d8 fire damage because of Green Flame Blades. You're already doing 2d8 damage, plus your dexterity modifier damage, plus if you get sneak attack, which is remarkably easy to get. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Give me a couple seconds here so I can actually get to the rogue so I know exactly what they get at 5th level. That's 3d6. That's another 3d6 on there. So at that point, you're doing 2d8 plus 3d6 damage on every attack, and then if you crit, that turns to 4d8 plus 66 damage. And with the assassin subclass, at 3rd level, any creature that hasn't acted yet, you have advantage on, which gives you that much more chance to crit. And any hit you score against a creature that is surprised, which is different than not, like, the rules for surprise are very specific, but any attack that you make against a creature that's surprised is automatically a critical hit. So this turns into a really, really burst damage centric character that just does tons and tons of damage. And if you do something like Booming Blade, what will generally happen is you use Booming Blade to hit the guy, and then you disengage with your bonus action, because that's what rogues do, and you run away, and then the guy has to try and chase you. As soon as he takes a step, he takes more damage. So yeah, either Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade with Blade Singer and then Rogue turns into a really, really powerful class without having to sacrifice too much. Like the high level Rogue abilities, 19th level is always an ability score improvement, or almost always an ability score improvement. And then 20th level for a Rogue is this thing called Stroke of Luck, which is kind of useful. If your attack misses a target within range, you can turn the miss into a hit. Alternatively, if you fail an ability check, you can treat the d20 roll as a 20. But you can only use that once per short or long rest. So that basically means if you make an attack and you miss, you can just decide to hit. Or if you fail a saving throw against something, you can just decide that you got a nat 20 on it. So yes, is that a really powerful ability? Yes. But when you factor in that just by taking these 2 levels of Wizard, by 17th level, you are doing 3d8 damage plus, I have to look at, because that would be 8d6, yeah, because you'd be 15, you'd be a 15th level rogue. You do 3d8 damage plus 8d6 sneak attack damage. And then if you crit, which again, with all the advantage and all the other stuff that you're getting, that would turn it into 6d8 damage plus 16d6 sneak attack damage for a single attack. It's massive. That's one of the things that 5th edition, when you're really playing kind of the numbers games of it, is critical hits and just multiplying the amount of dice that you use, however you use them. As long as you can add dice to your roll, that's always going to be beneficial to you. Another very, very common thing to see done is Paladins multiclassing with either Warlocks or Sorcerers, because Paladins, their spellcasting ability is Charisma. And the unique thing about Paladins is they have this thing called Smite. What they do is they burn a spell slot instead of casting a spell. They just burn a spell slot, they do extra damage. And the higher the spell slot, the more damage that they do. The interesting thing about it is Paladins get to choose if they're smiting after they see their attack roll. So what a lot of Paladins tend to do is they will hold their smites until they crit. And when you smite, you'll do 2d8, just with a level 1 smite, you'll do an extra 2d8 damage. Well, if it's a crit, because again, it's dice, that turns that 2d8 into 4d8s. And then every level up to, I think, 44 or 48 extra damage, level higher. So you can cast it at level 2, you'd be doing 3d8. At level 3, you'd be doing 4d8. You might even able to get up to 5d8. I can't remember. I'll look it up for you guys, seeing as I'm here. Smite. Yeah, 2d8. Oh, yeah, up to a maximum of 5d8. So level 4 is really where, or it's 2d8. Level 2 is 3d8. Level 3 is 48. Level 4 is 48. Now, Paladins are half-casters, so they don't get as many spell slots. So what I have seen done is you take Paladin up to level 5, so you can get the extra attack, and you can get, like if you go Vengeance Paladin, you can get Hunter's Mark. So you get the extra attack, you get your ability score improvement at 5, and then they take either Warlock or Sorcerer levels, specifically because it gives them more spell slots, because Warlocks have that special spell casting where they get their spell slots back on a short rest, and Sorcerers are full casters, so they get a lot more spell slots. And what they will do is, instead of casting spells as a Sorcerer, they simply use the extra spell slots to smite with. And like I said, it's not uncommon to see them, with sorcerers specifically, because they can actually change their sorcery points into additional spell slots since they're not casting spells that much, and they can wander into combat, dual wielding, short swords or scimitars or something like that, or long swords if they really want to take the dual wielder feat. And yeah, they wade into combat. They hunters mark the guy. They go attacking. They can do Vow of Enmity on them, which gives them advantage on all their attack rolls. They can do that once per day. And then every single time they hit, they can just smite over and over and over again. I myself has played a paladin that was just a straight paladin, and due to the fact that I just rolled really well, I in one turn I think I was a level 5 paladin. In one turn, with just 2 attacks, I did 100. I don't know, 100 some odd damage. Just because I smited against the guy, he was undead, so he took extra damage from my smite, and I crit. So I think I did a level 2. I think I did a level 2 smite, which is normally 48 damage against an undead because they get an extra d8 of damage. It turned into 8d8 damage plus my 1d8. Plus I think I had already had him hunters marked. So that was another d6. So those both turned into 2d6 and 2d8. So grand total, that turned into 2d8 plus 8d8 is 10d8 plus 2d6 plus my strength mod in a single blow. Like crazy, crazy high damage. So that's a very, very common thing to see, is that paladins taking levels in a full spellcaster class simply to get more spell slots that they can smite with. And adding in, other features like, again, if you do wild magic, you can do Tides of Chaos, or if you do Shadow Magic is a new one, you can get some kind of really cool abilities to cast darkness that you can see in, or other really, really cool stuff. So that's something. The other thing that I've seen quite a few times with melee classes in general, that have abilities like paladins and that, is they will take 2 levels in fighter, because at 2nd level fighters get action surge, which basically just gives them another round of actions, of an extra major action, which for a paladin that means that they can attack 4 times. Once they hit level 5, they can attack 4 times instead of just 2 times in a turn. So again, dipping into fighter for 2 levels will get you that action surge, and make you really, really effective at just doing lots of burst damage, gives you lots of chances to hit, and then anytime you crit, you just add on the smite damage and do just tons of stuff. The same thing can be true about like a rogue taking 2 levels of paladin, because that's when paladins get their smite ability, and as long as they have spell slots, they can smite with them. So if you take the arcane trickster path for rogues, you get again just 2 levels of paladin, and you get a rogue that can smite and do crazy sneak attack damage, and has all the other kind of rogue abilities of being able to hide and stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically how multiclassing works in 5th edition. Is you get short-term like burst damage and stuff like that, and short-term goals. You have to give up some long-term stuff, but in general, again, there's always a chance that you're never going to get your character high enough to actually use those high-level skills. And again, when you look at the synergies between the different classes, you can get some really, really powerful stuff. Now, this is what I call min-maxing. It's also called munchkinning and a bunch of other things. It's basically worrying more about mechanics than storyline and story reasons. So that does upset some DMs. Like some DMs will go, if you want to multi-class your monk into a warlock, you have to come up with some story reason as to why your monk would form a pact with a creature. It's like, why would you, as a monk, want to form a pact with this creature? You have to come up with some story. So that's the only limitation you're ever going to have, is if the DM is going to force you to make story reasons for your weird choices and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a couple different examples of just looking at synergy between class skills and stuff like that that works really well. Again, in 5th edition in general, while you can take a lot of levels in like 2 classes and be a true like half and half character, or you can take levels in 3 or 4 different classes. Generally, what works best is you dip into another class by only taking 1 or 2 levels to get a single, either 1 or 2 abilities that really synergize with how you play your character. And that's generally what you see a lot in multiclassing in 5th edition. You don't really see the 3rd edition, Fighter 7, Wizard 3, Rogue 4, stuff like that, where you have like 3 or 4 different classes, and it doesn't really happen that way. Generally, you will see a monk that is dabbled in some warlock stuff, or you will see a paladin that is dabbled, or technically they start as a paladin and then just go sorcerer, because their basic attack bonus and everything keeps getting higher, and then they just keep getting spell slots and sorcery points and stuff like that, and you can just go wading into battle, having tons and tons and tons, and smiting every single time they attack. So, yeah. Hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your question, Sapphire Dragon. Again, I tend to play, I have not played a multi-classed character yet. I think there are enough feats out there that you don't really need to multi-class too much, and generally most of the multi-classing that I've seen while running games has been people that are trying to min-max their character, trying to really turn their character into a uber powerful version of them. And 5th edition has enough stuff in it that it's actually not difficult to deal with min-max characters. Like in 3rd edition, and Pathfinder especially, when you had a min-maxer at your table, he could kind of ruin the game for everyone else, because he would just plow through everything. And if you made combat encounters that were challenging for that character, the other characters were dead. But if you made combat encounters that were challenging for the rest of the party, he would just walk all over them. 5th edition doesn't have that problem as much, because it's relatively well balanced, and everything has offsets. Like the monk that I mentioned at the beginning of this that has darkness cast them. Well, darkness is a concentration spell. So anytime they take damage, they have to make a concentration check. And if they fail it, they lose the darkness. So for a DM, if a player is really cheesing this darkness mechanic, start doing things like throwing, bombs into their darkness where you don't have to actually aim for them, or fireballs or cones of cold, stuff like that they're going to take damage for, and force them to just keep rolling until they miss their concentration check, and then they lose their darkness, and therefore their big advantage. And every one of these other things that I've mentioned, there are ways to get around it, to make sure that the character is not so overpowered that everyone else in the party just feels worthless. And that's, again, it's one of the things I like about 5th edition. But again, I hope that this kind of answered, why would anyone ever multi-class in 5th edition? Because there are some definite benefits to it. And like I said, there are people, I've heard it on, I can't even remember who it was that said it. I think it was Nerdarchy, said in one of their videos, yes, if you allow multiclassing, because multiclassing is technically an optional rule. You don't have to allow it, but most people do. If you allow multiclassing, multiclass characters will always be more powerful than single-class characters. I disagree 100% with that, but I've heard the argument time and time again, and they will bring up examples like the ones I told you about here, to say, no, 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 no. See, multi-class characters, super overpowered. You can't allow them at the table. Or if you do allow them at the table, everybody's going to multi-class. I don't believe that. Again, I've played with multi-class characters, and I've been able to hold my own with no difficulty whatsoever, just being a single-class character, because I've been able to get higher level abilities that they haven't been able to get much faster than they have. So anyway, that's all for me today. Again, please, 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 if you're not subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button. I'm still, I think, about 740-ish subs away from hitting my goal, and I'm going to do number crunching to see where I am as far as hours watched. But you guys have been killing it with hours watched. I really, really appreciate it. There's still a long way to go. Like when we started this, I think I needed 3,500 hours watched. Even with everything you guys are doing, I'm still going to be fighting pretty hard to get this all done by February the 20th. So anyway, that's all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right. Bye-bye.